We're incredibly excited to have our students returning to campus in about 2 weeks. We believe that in-person education is the best way to meet the educational and socio-emotional needs of our students, and we've taken every possible step to do so in a safe environment. That said, many, if not most of you, were able to attend the August 13th webinar on safely reopening. So tonight's webinar has a different focus. And while we'll touch on some COVID-specific matters, our intent tonight is to get everyone ready for what will be a somewhat different, but nevertheless outstanding year. In just a few moments, I'm going to turn the floor over to our amazing head of lower school, Karen Lovett, who will begin by sharing a division level update, including introducing our lower school teams. We'll then look at schedules for each possible learning scenario and then move into questions and answers, beginning with a few frequently asked questions. Please note that in the interest of time, we've tried to combine similar questions that have been asked us in different ways. So if you have additional questions, or if you want to ask follow-up questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box. Only the hosts will see your question. But first, I want to start with a little bit of a Bissell Torah. So here at Bernardsell, we have 54 central Jewish values that we have students learn about over the course of their career. And tonight, I want to focus specifically on one of these, which is our theme for the year, Achrayut. It connects in obvious ways and some not so obvious ways to how we live with COVID, how we deal with issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which will be an ongoing point of focus this year, and in how we interact and live with each other on a daily basis. And in a typically Jewish way, I want to look carefully at this phrase, this value and this theme, because it's one of the most powerful words we have at our disposal. So achrayut is a specific kind of responsibility, a social responsibility. It's the moral belief that as individuals, we are responsible both for ourselves and for the well-being of the other. Now, it happens that if you look at each letter of the word achrayut, it gives a little bit more of a glimpse into the message that it's trying to get across. So achrayut begins with the first letter of the alphabet, Aleph, which reminds us of the primary importance of this value. It's also the letter we use to abbreviate ani, so me or self, which is a reminder that we, ourselves, bear the responsibility. The next letter is chet. Aleph chet, which spells ach, means brother in Hebrew, and it reminds me, the ani, that I'm obligated to take care of my brother. When we add the next letter, resh, it spells acher, or other. This is the root of achrayut, both literally and linguistically. The other is a key phrase in Judaism, as we're reminded that we were once the stranger. And so we must always remember that we're responsible for the welfare of others. The next letter is yud, which now spells acharei, which means after. And this reminds us to always consider the consequences of our action, that which comes following our action as part of social responsibility. The next letter is vav, and now we have acharav, which means after him, which reminds us to follow our leaders when they have the welfare and responsibility of everyone, including the other, in mind. And last, with the addition of taf, where we've gone from aleph to taf, from the beginning to the end of the alphabet, we have achrayut, the moral responsibility we have for those around us, including the stranger. This is not the kind of negative responsibility we mean when we say, I am accountable for my actions, I'm responsible, but rather the positive mitzvah to acknowledge I have a responsibility to make the needs of others my own. And our goal is to integrate this throughout our year as a central defining theme for the academic year and for the study of Judaism. So with that, I hope that will shed a little bit of light on our theme for the year, and it is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to our amazing head of lower school, Karen Lovett.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Gary. And it's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you for spending some of your Tuesday evening with us. I'm really glad to have everyone here. It is super strange for me to be so intimately involved with families and then have the summer where I'm not as connected with people. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation tonight. I plan to get just a brief overview and what you can expect for the next couple of weeks and beyond, and then hopefully take as many questions as we can fit in. Certainly we can't, predict the future, although that would be really, really helpful if anyone had a crystal ball on hand. But, given how much we know about the state of affairs in Chicago right now and all of the learning that we captured this past spring, there's a lot to talk about. So I do have a short slideshow to share and some visuals and things to look at that I think will be helpful. But before I do that, I love to just have an opportunity to see everyone. I'm sort of trying to scroll through and see everybody's face here before I share my screen. I would like to just share a couple of promises or themes or commitments that I'd like to make to you as we embark on this sort of unique but exciting year. The first is that I want you to know that I and we as a lower school team feel really prepared and organized. This is not going to be a typical year. We know that. It's not going to be regular, and there are likely to be some things that are going to remind us on a daily or weekly basis that we're still in the middle of a global health pandemic. But our biggest and most important job right now is to provide the predictable structures and routines that we know are paramount for kids and that can only be provided within the confines of a school day. And I think that will help everybody feel the most secure and the most safe. So while we don't exactly know what will happen when, we do know a lot about how safe routines can encourage structure and for kids and families. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I really am committed to being a good listener. I really mean it when I say that we will partner with you and try and give you and your kids and your family what you need when you need it. So I really do want to hear from people on how you're feeling and what things are working and what things need tweaking. Certainly there will be some things in both categories. Some things will be possible to sort of solve and deal with right away. And some things will have to be a little bit more patient, but I promise to give maximum effort on behalf of your family and your kids. The third thing and the last thing is that we are anticipating the need for an extraordinary balance between academic experiences for your kids and their social and emotional support. We know that kids have not been in school since March, which is in the life of a small person, a really, really long time. So, thank goodness they're very resilient, probably more than us in many cases, many times. But, there are definitely going to be some ups and downs as they get used to us again and get used to the routines again. I'm already dreading the August 31st alarm clock situation, and I'm sure that many of you, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. And so we know that even in a typical year, this balance is really important, and we always have to support kids from a social emotional lens, but we anticipate this more this year than ever. There'll be a lot of journaling and mood check-ins and sharing and coloring and talking and a lot of metaphorical temperature checks, as you will. That's sort of a bad pun right now, but you got where I'm going. So anyway, that is my spiel about the things that are feeling really important to me and to the team right now. So I'm gonna share my screen and we'll talk some logistics, and then we will take as many questions as we can squeeze in. So sorry, let me just make sure I have the right thing up here. All right. Come on, technology. There we go. One more click. Okay. Hopefully we can see this. Yes? All good? Okay. So I will start. That's a little better. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start just by talking about a couple of the pretty impressive list of summer PD that our staff has been working on this year. This is specific to lower school. I have probably been in a very annoying way passing along every opportunity that I can find for our teachers to take advantage of this summer. A couple of quick highlights that I'm extremely proud of have to do with all of our teachers went through some Google Classroom training this summer and some G Suite training, which is really going to be helpful for in person, and should the need to pivot to distance learning come into play, this will also be extremely helpful. We also had one of our teachers, Hamora Bracha, actually complete her Google certification, which is really exciting and going to be very, very helpful for us this year. Another is that we had some teachers attend the Teachers College of at Columbia and also the Harvard Graduate School of Education's seminars this summer on strategies for online learning and teaching. And then lastly, there's a lot here to talk about, but at the risk of taking too much time, the last thing that was really exciting was this virtual math summit held by Build Math Minds, which is a yearly summit. We always get some really great ideas on best practice, especially geared toward technology this year. So that was really exciting. So I'd like to just introduce you to our teaching teams this year. You might notice that we have a new first grade teacher. Her name is Allison Marsh, Miss Marsh. Allison is coming to us with about 7 years of teaching experience, most recently from Alphonsus Academy for the Arts. She is a product of Jewish Day School from Atlanta and is very excited to be with us at Bernard Zell. The second grade team is intact from last year. The third grade team also is welcoming a new addition. Lydia Malkin is joining our third grade team. She is most recently coming to us from a teaching position at a small independent school in New York, but is a product of the Latin School of Chicago for her own education, born and raised in Chicago, and very happy to be back in Chicago and with us at Bernard Zell. And this is our fourth grade team. We are also welcoming Alicia Levy, who is not new to our school as she's been a member of the early childhood team, but we are thrilled to welcome her into fourth grade with all of her expertise. So this will round out our lower school team this year. All right, so we're sort of prepared when I'm talking about the confident organization and preparedness for sort of 4 different scenarios. In-person learning, when our whole school is home and distance learning, when a portion of our school has to be home for distance learning, or when some kids need to be home for an extended absence, but the rest of the school is in person. So I think it makes the most sense right now to sort of talk a little bit about the 2 kind of most likely scenarios. And I put a visual here. I recognize that the words may be too small to make much meaning out of, but I hope it's helpful to see the visual here. On the left, you'll see a sample daily schedule. This is a weekly schedule for one cohort or one class in lower school. The green sections are general studies led. The pink sections are specials, and the blue section or bluish purple section is the Jewish studies and Hebrew class. So you'll see that in each day, if we're in person, the kids will have 5 academic blocks, 3 of them taught by the general studies teacher, and then 1 special and 1 Jewish studies class. It's exciting to me to see 2 blocks of recess in addition to a lunch break. This year, we know that we're going to need to move our bodies a little bit more and have added an extra recess. On the right side, we have the distance learning version of our schedule. And what I'm hoping you can notice by the comparison here is that the schedules mirror each other or mimic each other, with the exception of the fact that the teaching and learning blocks are a little bit shorter and they have breaks in between each section. So we will want to make sure that the kids have adequate time to de-screen, if you will, take a snack break, take a movement break before they log into their next class, but that they will have the opportunity to stay connected to these 3 core content blocks, a specials period, and a Hebrew and Jewish studies period each day of the week. We do have the shortened Wednesday and Friday schedule, which will limit the general studies teachers a little bit just because of the timing of that day. So I just want to go back to the in-person cohorted learning for a moment and just share that while we know that students are going to be masked and we know that it's going to be a little different because their desks are far apart, we also know that if we have these kids in person and we're teaching and the kids are with us, like that's our jam. We know what to do in that scenario. And so, you know, while some routines might have to be modified, the first one that always comes to mind is morning meeting. we don't have a carpet or can't sit in a close-knit circle, and we can't give handshakes or high fives, but we certainly can modify that routine by using our desks, using the perimeter of the classroom, getting very creative with our digital technologies to make sure that we have an opportunity to welcome and greet and hear from each child each day. And I thought maybe,
Karen, we have a couple of questions about the schedule. Would you like for us to address them now, or would you like to wait till after?
sure. Yeah, no problem. I was just thinking maybe let me go through kind of like a day in the life of a kid who's coming to school right now, and then let's do those questions. So I thought it might be helpful to sort of walk you through, keeping the left side of the screen in mind, what it might look and feel like for your child or children to come to school each day now. So they might come into class in the morning. There will probably be a quiet morning routine or activity as kids start to trickle in. They will have their belongings in their backpack, and they will be bringing those belongings into the classroom with them. So they'll go straight from their car right to the classroom and have a dedicated place next to their desk for their backpack. They will have their technology in their backpack, which they're going to be taking home to and from school each day this year. And then maybe it's going to be time for morning meeting, where we will do the aforementioned activities, a time for writing workshop where the teacher might give a mini lesson and maybe do a brainstorm session with the children, have some interaction with the whiteboard, or share out some ideas, and then have some independent writing time. At which point, when the kids come back together, we can do a little share out of some creative writing that has happened, or do some partner talk with what we've written about. And then maybe it's time for specials, followed by a morning recess. Afterward, maybe it's time for a math block. And again, we would start that block with a mini lesson. Maybe we would use some, large scale manipulatives, a Google slide deck. Maybe we would use some document cameras or a workshop, to lead us into our workshop activities. So after the mini lesson, the kids might play a game together. We might have a digital challenge or a partner challenge. They might be working on a workbook page to practice the skill of the day. And then it's time for afternoon recess. And then perhaps they'll end the day with Hebrew and Jewish studies, where depending on the grade level, certainly they'll open the class in the same way that they've always, with important routines, hello and how are you routines of the month and the year, and practicing important vocabulary and conversation. And then that Jewish studies teacher would be responsible also for the closing out of the day with the kids, a closing circle, a mood check-in, a share out, and then get the kids to dismissal. So that will be, again, while we will have to modify some things, some routines the kids are used to, much of what they are accustomed to will remain familiar to them. The workshop models, the learning from one another, the sharing, the collaboration will all still be able to occur and take place. So those things will feel very familiar. Gary, did you want to throw me a question about the schedule now?
Yes, so there's a couple of questions. The first is a very general one about why classes are at different times from day to day. And I know that's obviously the case regardless of the schedule. So maybe you could talk generally about that.
Yeah, that is primarily driven by the fact that we have a Jewish studies teacher that is seeing classes, that is seeing each class in a particular grade level. This is a little bit of a structural change from years past. So if I take fourth grade, for example, Bracha Dror is the Hebrew teacher and Jewish studies teacher for fourth grade, and she's going to be seeing each of the sections in fourth grade. So obviously that will help guide the schedule. In addition, a question that I know has come up is how will specials work? So maybe it's a good time to chat about that for a minute. We're going to be operating specials this year on an intensive rotation. So specials will be hosted in 5 or 6 week chunks, whereby fourth graders are going to start the year with music, and then they'll move into their second special after 5 or 6 weeks has passed. So in addition to the Hebrew Jewish studies teacher seeing the whole grade, also the specials teacher will as well, so that we had to stagger those teaching blocks.
Great. The next question is, for remote learning, will there be more live Zoom instruction for the lower school to keep them engaged during the day? compared to earlier this year.
Got it. Yes, a significant amount more. So I'll just share about the distance learning, and should we need to, we can always hop back on the phone and talk more details. But I think what would be comforting to know now is that a consistent schedule, the synchronous experiences, the predictable classes are something that we know is really important, and we learned a lot about that in the springtime. We also know that if we are going to be doing distance learning or remote learning for an extended period of time, we need to be hitting our core content areas every day. And so this will allow, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the distance learning schedule, where I don't know if everybody can see the words, but there's a writing block, a reading block, and a math block from the general studies teacher each day, and also an opportunity to Zoom in with specials, and also Jewish studies teachers. So for the most part, all of those blocks will be synchronous experiences or live interactive experiences. There may be times if a class is doing a certain project, integrated social studies and writing project, for example, that maybe they would take Monday's lesson live and learn about the project, and maybe they would meet with a small group on Tuesday instead of gathering with the whole class. But for the most part, those experiences will all be synchronous.
Great, thanks. The next question, we'll take one or two more like this, and then we can move on and come back as we get into the FAQs. The next question is about recess. Will the children be all outside together? I know they're trying to keep the cohorts together, but will they always be separated from friends in other classes if they're out at the same time? And I'll also ask Audris Wong, who is on the call, I believe, if she has comments on this to jump in as well.
Sure, I'll share what I know, and if Audris wants to jump in or correct me, feel free. So the cohorts are going to be going outside. All of the I'm going to stick with fourth grade for consistency purposes. All the fourth graders will be going outside at the same block each day. So their morning recess and afternoon recess will be at the same time. They will be going out with their cohort and in a designated area. We're going to be dividing our field space and our blacktop space and our playground space into different areas so that the cohorts, so we can maintain cohorting. Yeah, Audris, did you have something more to add about recess? Oh, you're muted probably.
Oh, sorry, there we go.
Hi. Yes, the cohorts will stay stay together during recess. They won't mix together as a grade. Now, I do want to say that being outside and they are masked at recess, that's really the most safe scenario. What we anticipate is that probably friends who are in different cohorts will see each other across the dividing line and choose to sort of set up camp 6 feet from each other to catch up. And I think that's perfectly safe. The reason we don't let them mix is because you can't supervise that they're not getting within 6 feet during recess time. But if they are sort of lined up, talking to each other across that barrier, then it's much easier to keep an eye on them. And so there will be an opportunity to say hi and catch up to their friends who might be in another cohort. But they just won't have the opportunity to sort of like sneak off together and run around and tell secrets. So that's essentially how it will work.
Great, thanks. There's a number of other questions, but we can come back to them after the FAQ.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just take a couple of minutes and finish up this slide. So moving on, I just wanted to share a couple of things that I am really excited about, and I know the teachers are really excited about this year. We have several curricular initiatives. One is the aforementioned social emotional focus, which we are putting a lot of stock in preparing for to help the kids reacclimate and re-energize. Also, the aforementioned or structure or model shift with the Jewish studies teacher teaching across a whole grade level now will really allow for an integrated experience in general and Jewish studies, and allow all of our Jewish studies teachers and general studies teachers to be planning together. We have dedicated a time every week where we're going to do curricular planning together so that each will know what's on each other's agenda, and really allow for everyone to be teaching with that threaded Jewish lens that we always aspire toward. We are excited to be expanding our Wilson Foundations program My husband always says, Karen, you forgot the O, foundations. And I want to remind him, no, it's fundations. I know it looks like a typo every time. This is a program that has been wildly successful in SK through second grade thus far in teaching kids a multisensory phonics approach, helping tremendously with reading and sentence structure and comprehension and spelling and handwriting. So we are very glad to be adding the final layer of our Wilson this year. We will have the most comprehensive program they offer, which is SK through third grade. And we will be under the tutelage of our one and only Emily Toomey to help us stay accountable and hold us with fidelity on that. And the last thing is that as a school, we are definitely doing a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And I'm pleased to say that Lower School is piloting a program this year called AmazeWorks, which is going to help us bring some of this work to our elementary school kids in an accessible and age-appropriate way. As we all know, we take this very seriously and are battling a lot of things in the news and a lot of big questions from small kids. So we're excited to look towards some of this work together. And then lastly, I will say one thing that I did not say at the beginning when we were talking about schedules, but it is related to tips for supporting students at home. We are definitely planning on some parent education videos specifically around technology. We will be using the Seesaw platform again for our youngest learners, the ones who are still technically of early childhood age, and moving into Google Classroom in third grade. So we will be sending home some Screencastify videos and things to help parents understand what their children should be able to do independently and give any sort of mini training to families that need. So that will be one tip for supporting your students at home. A couple of things that I think as a team we would find very helpful. The notion of practicing wearing your mask properly and stressing the importance of good hand hygiene. I feel very confident that the kids are quite accustomed to these routines by now and will just capitalize on something that they're already probably really good at. I think, keeping a positive mindset and having the highest expectations of students on their reentry will be really helpful for us. The kids are so capable and they will feed off of the emotions of the people around them. And we are working, I think this is equally important for our teachers, to make sure that we hold them to these high expectations and that they can achieve what we know they're capable of. The ask open-ended questions, that's something that's not specific to this time. But, rather than focusing on some of the limitations that we have to follow this year, it might be entertaining for you, or you might get more information by asking more specific sort of open-ended questions. How were you helpful today? What was one of your classroom jobs? What was something hilarious that happened? And then, really to the extent possible, we're going to try and stay really zoomed into the learning. We have a lot of learning to do. We didn't even talk about assessment tonight, although we have talked about that at length before. We have a lot of learning to do. And so staying really focused on the learning, getting excited about things that are coming up will be really great. And lastly, just to set up a workspace at home that's conducive for students learning. Of course, that will work really well if we have to pivot to distance learning at any point, but also for homework and other things, just to prioritize school being important and making sure that kids have a space that's ready at home. So with all of that said, I would love to, these are some of the questions that have come in. I think maybe Gary, if you want to throw me a few, I want to make sure and answer the ones that are relevant for the people on the call tonight.
Absolutely.
Maybe some of them overlap.
Sure. There's a number of questions about the use of the outdoor classrooms and whether both for classroom use and for lunch, whether the outside will be used extensively, particularly when the weather is nice.
Yeah, we sure hope so. I think Audris and the team is working very hard to set up some opportunities for us to hold classes outside. This will be sort of on a sign-up basis, and depending on what teachers are desiring that space at what times, we'll make a schedule that works well for everyone. We are going to try and be outside as much as humanly possible while our Chicago weather holds strong for us. I also anticipate, especially at the beginning, those of you who have rising first graders or second graders, that their attention spans can be quite short, especially at the beginning of the year when they're getting used to new routines. So frequently changing activities is something that we are masters of, and that will involve taking breaks outside, even outside of our typical recess times. We have the ability to take a security guard and go for a walk around the block. We're going to try and maximize opportunities as much as we can.
A couple of questions about how music's going to work. Obviously, there are concerns about singing.
Yep.
And so maybe you could talk a little bit about how the changes that we've had to put into place will impact music.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about that. Sharky, actually, Sharky Dunn was responsible for about 4 of those little summer PD bullet points. She has been really going to all ends to learn about what is appropriate, what is responsible right now, and some creative ways to bring music in. Certainly there will be a digital or video element. There will be a lot of mask humming, I'm sure. But really, I think the bulk of what she's excited about has to do with instruments. We happen to have a lot of class sets of instruments that we can use, you know, and rotate between the classes after having a good cleaning. She has a lot of rhythm instruments, a lot of drums, some Orff things. She's really, really excited about the instrumentation, and a lot of rhythm, you know, hand rhythm and body music. So I think there are a lot of creative ways until we can get some singing back in the house.
There are a couple of questions about learning services. There's one, if your child was previously pulled out for advanced reading with Ms. Goodman in the past, will that take place now? And then another one, how will learning services work via both models in person and distance? And Karen, it might make sense for us to also draft Lauren Almafty, who's on the call, to add some color to that response as well.
Yeah, I'll say just generally that the whole student services team, which includes learning specialists in 1st and 2nd grade, as well as 3rd and 4th grade, a math specialist, an enrichment specialist, and a social worker, all of those people are going to continue to provide support to the children who they've provided support for in the past, and those students who are newly identified as needing support. The support is going to look different at the beginning. Most of the support is going to be by way of either either individual pullout or very small group pullout, or even some virtual support when it's possible. The kids grew very adept in the spring at zooming into a book club, and you know, with kids that way we can mix across cohorts and involve more children. So that might be an interesting thing to pursue. The kids got very good at that last time. We even have an opportunity to, you know, mix kids of different grade levels if that's something that works in a student's profile and schedule. So Lauren, I don't know if you have something to add, or we can leave it sort of general. And I know Lauren has actually sent out information to all the families whose students are on Lauren's caseload now, but also, you know, we have a lot of opportunity for one-on-one conversations if you have specific questions about your own individual child.
Yeah, I'll just also add that the collaboration and consultation both with classroom teachers and any outside providers will continue and be really an essential piece for all of us. And in terms of the distance learning piece, we will continue to put in place the pieces that were really successful. We learned a lot at the end of last school year, and we're able to think proactively about the pieces that we wanted to continue and the pieces that needed to maybe have some shifts. We still do really look at the individual learner and how they take in information, and we'll be crafting more specific individual plans should we need to move on to a distance learning model. We have a really solid idea of how to start, and we'll tweak as we go along, as we always do, and we see how kids respond to the instruction for their new grade level and whether we're in person or happen to be in a distance learning model.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
What technology will the students have and or be bringing to and from school each day?
Great question. All the students are going to be provided a piece of technology. 1st and 2nd graders will be having iPads, and 3rd and 4th graders, Chromebooks. Actually, I'm happy to report that the 3rd and 4th graders are getting brand new Chromebooks this year. Very exciting. They are touch screen, and they're the kind that like open and then they flip all the way so that you can use it almost like an iPad. So those pieces of technology are going to be distributed along with a charging cord, and they're going to be coming to and from your home every day. We have the utmost faith in the of all of your children to learn teams of charging their devices at home at night and bringing a fully charged device back to school. Don't worry, we will have some backup chargers in case you forget one night, but we are really going to work with the kids on this routine so they can learn how to take care of their devices and also be prepared should we need to pivot.
Great. In the event that we move to distance learning, will the lesson plans and schedules remain consistent across all classes in the same grade? This question is being asked because there might be an opportunity for collaboration between families to team up for childcare, even if they're not in the same class.
Yeah. Yes, to the first question. The grade level teams have dedicated planning time and will be preparing lessons and content together. They do this during the school year as well, so that will be a seamless transition to do planning and execution similarly. If you have a student who is in a different cohort, they will have different synchronous experiences. Their schedules may not line up exactly right, but they will be sharing similar content, so could always work together during break time or after school time as well.
So the next question is, well, there's a few of them about what drop-off looks like, and we might ask Audra to chime in on this in terms of drop-off and pickup and dismissal.
Yeah, I can start and Audra chime in because I think you have more details. So drop off for lower school students is going to be at 8 o'clock. Students are welcome at 8 o'clock. If you have an older sibling in middle school who's coming at 7:45, your lower school student will certainly be welcome to join them at that time and make their way straight to their classrooms. But classrooms for lower school will open at 8 o'clock. And then dismissal will be happening starting at 3:30 or 3:35 from the classrooms. And Audra, maybe you could chime in there if you think there are more details at this point.
Sure. We are rolling out a platform called School Pass. School Pass will be where you both do your health symptom tracking as well as putting in your dismissal information. And you can also just put in an absence and schedule what you need to. And if you're even in a carpool, you can change who's picking your child up that day. So it's a pretty robust platform. So with respect to arrival and dismissal, it's not going to seem that different in terms of timing. You'll still drop off at the time that Karen said, but we're going to be utilizing 5 different entrances. So you'll receive much more information about that in the next coming weeks about what entrance your child will enter. This allows us to disperse them and create more distance between the students as they're arriving. They'll get a little squirt of sanitizer before they go into the building, and then they'll have the opportunity to wash their hands once they get in. At dismissal, if you have the School Pass on your phone, essentially once you enter the perimeter of the building, the app will notify us that you're here to be picked up, to pick up your child. If you're picking up on foot, you'll wait in one of the tents on the field, and there'll be a notification sent to your child's classroom, and a runner will bring your child down to you. If you're picking up in Carline, same thing. Once you enter the gates, the phone will ping that you're here, and your child will be brought down from the classroom to the car.
Great, thanks. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. There's a couple of questions about math. Most of them reference the fact that in middle school, for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that math will be taught in order to allow for the appropriate leveling online, but in school. There's a couple of questions about whether that has any impact on lower school math.
No direct impact. Math is a subject that our lower school classroom teachers are adept at differentiating. We are accustomed to running workshop models, which allow for individuals to work at their own appropriate pace and depth. There will be sort of mini lessons about the grade level content, and then we can go in a lot of directions from there depending on what the kids need. So no direct impact there and no anticipated virtual math teaching in lower school.
Terrific. And the last question, there's been a couple of questions that have come in about pickup and whether students can be dismissed with their older sibling. Maybe we'll turn to Audrey for that one, or you have that?
I know that. I know that. Yes, older siblings, middle school siblings are going to be allowed to come by the classrooms and pick up younger siblings. So they'll be able to do sort of a walk by pickup.
Terrific, terrific. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We are about to actually be closed off because we have a middle school webinar immediately after this, but I wanted to thank you all for being here. We will make sure that any questions that weren't answered on here get over to Karen so that she can reach out directly with them. And I want to take a moment to thank Karen and her team because they've really done just an amazing job in an unusual circumstance, making sure that we are ready to rock and preparing for all sorts of different circumstances. And we're just very lucky to have you and your leadership. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you. And it is a humongous pleasure to be putting in the time and effort to prepare to see your families and kids again. So I very much look forward to that. Thank you all. You know where to find me if you need anything more or have further questions. See you soon. Yay, I can say see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.